Justin, coming out of the gate, super generic. It's like that running play right up the gut, first play of the game. How's it for you today? Anything catch you off guard? Any surprises?
Nothing really caught me off guard. A lot of dotting of I's and crossing T's to your point. But, a couple signings that I just broke, excuse me, on 3DownNation.com. Former Riders defensive lineman Anthony Lanier has signed with the Toronto Argonauts. It's believed that Jason Shivers, who was with Lanier in Saskatchewan a couple years ago before he went to Edmonton, is going to be the defensive coordinator with Toronto, and he brings over Lanier. So there's a connection there. The other signing that I just broke that hadn't been reported anywhere at all was Sean Oakman, the towering defensive lineman going from the Edmonton Elks to the Montreal Alouettes. He had also had a little bit of time with the Toronto Argonauts, won a Grey Cup at Mosaic Stadium actually in 2022 with the Double Blues. So those are the absolute latest signings. But everything else today, Barney, so far has literally just been putting signatures on paper or DocuSigns, should I say.
I don't think it was when we talked last week, but there was, some people and then social media that they were thinking Kadeem Carey maybe not going back to the Argos. Did you think that was always kind of a done deal?
I thought it made sense to stay there. He had over 1,000 yards. The Argos were able to keep him healthy, treated him really well from a physical standpoint in terms of the treatment he was able to get from the team. And if you look around the league, Barney, there wasn't a glaring running back spot open. Except for the Argos, although some people talked about Kevin Brown potentially taking over there, who started his career with the Edmonton Elks. But I always felt like Toronto was the best spot for Carey to re-sign.
We have Tommy Stevens coming up on the show at 3:30. Seems like a good guy. He's he was your insider today, I hear.
He was, man. He had some great stats about his short yardage success, and that's the main role that the Riders are bringing him in for. There's some people around the CFL that feel like he could develop as a passer and has some talent in terms of that deep arm strength. But you look at what he put out on social media, combined on second and third down from 2022 through 2024, 122 of 132, which is 92.4% in terms of quarterback sneaks. And then just third down alone, 60 of 62, 97% conversion rate. So a great value add for Corey Mace, Jeremy O'Day, and the Riders.
And I think there's probably a lot of people that were in the same boat as me that you start kind of going down the rabbit hole last week when you guys announced on 3 Down, Tommy Stevens. Okay, well, it's more about this guy. Like, he played Penn State, then went SEC to Mississippi State, threw for over 1,100 yards there. Like, the guy played quarterback in the best college conference in the world. He can do other things probably than just run.
Definitely, and it's not like he is just a short yardage quarterback. He's been pinned as that in this league, but I think there's still some upside there. And just like with Jake Mayer, there is a familiar feel because Mark Mueller spent time in Calgary with Tommy Stevens.
Yeah, no, those two will be familiar for sure. Riders also getting some help on the O-line today.
Philippe Gagnon, I really like this signing. He is a nasty, physical offensive lineman. You know how Corey Mace likes his defensive linemen to be physical and get after it, really his entire team. So I think Gagnon fits in with this. He's a guy that started 17 games last year for the Montreal Alouettes, who had the best record in the Canadian Football League. Did not win the Grey Cup, though. He won the Grey Cup a year before in 2023 with the Owls. I really like how this came together for the Riders, and it gives them even more national depth in terms of the ratio.
I feel when I saw it, and I'm like, he's been playing in the league a long time. And then I started going through, right? Like his first year, he spent 1 year in Ottawa. But yeah, he's been in the league a long time. Almost like kind of like a last year when we signed Hardrick to an extent, a guy with a ton of experience, helping things out on the offensive line. Do you think that the salary cap raise and what happened last week, did that affect free agency at all this year, do you think?
I haven't heard about it affecting free agency at all because a lot of the guys had already agreed to deals, and it wasn't like they were going to go back on their word. The only deal so far that has been, let's say, reneged upon was Trey Roberson had agreed to terms to go from the Calgary Stampeders to the Ottawa Red Blacks, but that is not going to happen. That deal has fallen apart, I guess is the best way to put it. But I don't believe that's because of the late salary cap increase. That said, a lot of teams, coaches, general managers, players, agents that I talk to around the league really wish that increase was known before the negotiating window opened. It would have been nice.
Yeah, it's like going on a holiday and you're going to a 2-star and realize you got a bunch of money. You could have went to the 5-star. Anything surprise you? Anybody surprise you that hasn't signed yet?
That's a good question. The top guys left out of our top 30 pending free agents, like guys that didn't re-sign with their teams that actually made it to the window at 3DownNation.com would be Isaiah Cage, who is a tackle that has starting experience at left tackle. He started 24 games at left tackle the last 2 seasons for the Toronto Argonauts, by the way. That was 1 year in 2023 where the Argonauts were far and away the best team in the league, didn't win the Grey Cup. And then this year, the Argos won the Grey Cup. And, a couple of other ones stand out to me at the moment. The main one is Alexander Hollins. Yes, he had both his knees scoped. He's a receiver who was with the BC Lions, but now is a free agent. I think somebody's going to get an intriguing signing there if he can be healthy. There are people in the league that believe he's one of the best route runners in the league, can create separation, but he needs to hang on to the football. So we'll see where that shakes out with Hollins.
I was talking to the guys yesterday, talking to Maz and Dave off camera as well, and I was like, how does everything land with physicals? Guys signing. Are most things pending a physical? Signing bonuses, are those guaranteed? What do you know there?
A lot of it depends on the player. Teams will ask for health reports, especially if it's a player coming from a new team. Let's use, Tommy Stevens, for example. Yeah. Mark Mueller would know him, but they would usually, and I'm not saying they actually did in this case, but to take you behind the scenes, ask for the medical reports from the Calgary Stampeders. And if there was something that the Riders, let's say in this instance, wanted to check with Stevens by their own doctor, then they would bring him in, similar to what the Edmonton Elks are doing, holding off announcing officially some of these signings just to go over the physicals. But it's really a case-by-case basis.
Okay, and then the last question, we started with a generic one. We'll end with a generic one. Is there a winner in free agency so far?
I don't really like picking winners and losers because a couple of years ago when the Montreal Alouettes had the ownership issue and it was uncertain, I should say, and Gary Stern was out and, a bunch of these players were leaving the team because of it, Gino Lewis, one of them, the Alouettes ended up winning the Grey Cup. So yeah. I do think that the Edmonton Elks have done a great job with the roster remake there. That said, you have the Riders sort of on the other end of the spectrum, going with continuity, bringing in a couple pieces here and there, but having a roster that largely is going to be together for yet another season, which can benefit them. So there are some winners, but you're not necessarily going to win or lose the Grey Cup in free agency. It's about how your team comes together.
Okay, do you got to have a running total there at your house? How many days until like the first regular season kickoff? Like, because now we got to wait, right? Like camp is still, what is it, 2-3 months away? I know Rider Nation's excited though.
As they should be. I really like the roster that Jeremy O'Day, Corey Mason, the coaching staff, and the football operations staff is putting together. No, to answer your question, I don't have, a countdown clock because really in my world, the only thing that existed for the last week and a half was CFL Free Agency. So I'll turn my focus to the season, after this signing period ends.
Did you watch the Super Bowl?
Of course, man. The Eagles laid a beat down.
Jeez. Wasn't that surprising a little bit?
I didn't necessarily think that it was surprising. I thought that was the way that Philly had to win the one-on-one matchups and really tackle Patrick Mahomes well. Like I think you and I talked about it on the show. that was the real key to me. If Patrick Mahomes wasn't able to extend plays outside the pocket with his legs, I felt like the Eagles had a shot. And on the flip side, I felt like Jalen Hurts had to have at least a decent game throwing the football, and he did that, plus used his legs. So, I didn't see the Chiefs being blown out, but I always thought that the Eagles were at least going to be competitive.
Yeah, not one blitz, 6 sacks. It was a thing of beauty for anyone that bet on the Eagles. JD, busy day for you. Like you said, busy week. Thanks for making some time. And like I said, exciting day. Now we got 3 months to be excited for the start of things. Thanks, man.
Appreciate you having me on.